can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Baby Einstein, Atari, many more, how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, which helps service professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, coaches, consultants create additional revenue streams and stop just trading time for dollars. We hold you accountable to achieve your biggest goals with a step-by-step roadmap. Rise 25 is run by myself and co-founder John Corcoran. It is application only. Today, I am very excited. We have Paul Bigham, one of the top direct response marketers. He's founder of Bigham Agency. Summed up in a nutshell, Paul helps make it easy for people to feed the hungry, house the homeless, clothe the naked, and heal the sick. Paul, that's no small feat. Brian Kurtz introduced Paul at a VIP Titan dinner as the largest non-Jewish contributor to the state of Israel. He's raised over $1 billion for the state of Israel through direct mail, which he's going to talk about. And one company they work with was quoted as saying, during our 15-year association, the Bigham Agency has helped grow our annual budget from $4 million to $90 million a year in charitable support. Fun fact about Paul is he designs his own cowboy boots, and he saw Jimi Hendrix live. Paul, thanks for joining me.
Well, great. Pleased to be here. Thank you.
So how much direct mail pieces do you send per month now or per year?
Let's see. Per month, we do a little over 2 million pieces per month.
Oh.
And then another 12 million in acquisition. I have a $6 million stamp bill that I paid. So
They love you over there.
They do.
What's exciting lately that you're sending out? You can talk about it.
Yeah, we've got one thing we're really working on right now with the end of the winter coming through is the Holocaust Survivors. We do a lot of work in the former Soviet Union. I want to say we, the organization that we support, we help raise funds for. And they are working on, with Holocaust Remembrance Day coming up, not too far away, is to work on a campaign that not only remembers those who perished during the Holocaust, but to help those who were still alive who suffered through the Holocaust. And that's one of the big things we do. I've been over to Ukraine twice, flew into Kiev, and then we got in vans and drove 3 hours out into the countryside into the little shtetls, means it's the German expression for a little small village, and they really are small villages. Some of the roads that we went on, they were so far back and so ice packed, it would take an hour to go about 4 miles.
Wow.
I mean, it was just rut after rut after rut, and you'd have to stop and go around them, maybe 5-10 miles an hour that you would get there. So that's how remote, how isolated they are, and how difficult it is for them to get food, clothing, and shelter, or medicine. And again, most of these people are upper 80s, mid 90s. They live alone, they're by themselves. Horrible stories.
What were you doing there?
We were getting research, as we would call it. We were going in, meeting the individual people. Most of them are women. Most of the men didn't survive through this age. And so we would go and talk to them, find out what their story was like, and get their expressions. We had an interpreter with us, and then we'd get still photographs and then some video. And then we bring that back and put that into the appeal packages that we send out, the appeal letters or the newsletters, the annual reports, the calendars, different means of getting the message out to the constituency of the organization that we're helping. And it helps the donors to identify with who they're helping.
Well, so were those people Holocaust survivors?
Yeah, they were all Holocaust survivors. And I'll just do a couple of the stories.
Yeah, talk about a couple of the stories.
Yeah, to give you the depth of what they went through. And again, these are 90 plus or minus. I think 88's the youngest that I've seen, wow. 96 or so. So they're very hardy. Most of them, they're all Jewish, Ukrainian Jewish or Russian Jewish. Usually 5'2", maybe 5'2", 5'3". somewhat frail, but have lived a long, long time. One in particular, I remember saying that she was, as the Nazis came into her little village, again, way out in the middle of nowhere, came into her village, that they grabbed her and grabbed her mother and her dad, and they put the mother and the dad over into a line and eventually put them into a cart and eventually into a train, took them off to a prison camp. And one of the guards took her and just pushed her into the snow and said, "Don't get up." And so she lay there wondering what the heck was happening to her parents as they were being carted off, and all these guys with guns, and it's cold and so forth. And as soon as she could, she got up and ran off into the forest, and she lived in the woods for 3 years.
Holy cow.
These are like 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds.
She was 7, 8, 9, or 10 at the time.
7, 8, 9, or 10.
Wow.
And then one other who, the only way she survived is that she fell under the dead body of her mother and her father and waited till the Nazis had moved on off. And then she got up and ran off in the night. So if you can imagine, number one, seeing
Can't
your
even imagine. Yeah.
father being killed in front of you and then falling under them and having their dead bodies on you until these horrible creatures, horrible people left, and you get up and you run off to what? Some kind of a safety of living in the Ukrainian winter and woods for a while.
That is absolutely, I can't, it's not conceivable. What do they tell you? Like after those stories, what are they like now? What are some of the things that they conveyed to you when you were talking with them?
Well, mostly they're lonely. They're still Jewish, and they're still in Ukraine, and the Jews are still not liked in Ukraine in that whole area over there. So they're very isolated. No family to support them, no safety net. The closest thing they have is they'll have a Jewish worker come out once a month and just kind of check on them. So they're very, very lonely, and they just talk as fast as they can talk and cry and go through the stories, and very animated. And we're there ought to be a better way to say it. We're like celebrity to them in the fact that we came. We're from
You're documenting
America.
it, yeah.
From America, number one, we came to see them. Number two, they haven't seen anybody in a month. Number three, and they just really are absorbing our being there and just talk as fast as they can talk.
What was it like for you personally?
It's draining. It's just very, very emotional. You're on duty, you're on point. You're wanting to get the stories. You're wanting to get the accuracy so that you can go back and relay these stories to the people in America and actually around the world, but primarily in America, who care about Holocaust survivors. So you want to get that information down, and you have a translator, and the translator speaks a little bit of Ukrainian, a little Russian, and a little Yiddish, and the survivor speaks a little bit of each of those, and so you have 3 languages coming into 3 languages trying to
So is it going on? Is someone interpreting it to you in English, or are they doing that after the fact? Or
it's almost simultaneously.
it is.
And then I'm asking questions, and I'll say, so what did she do once the guards left? And then the interpreter would do that, and then the person would answer back and back to there and say, she waited until it's dark, got up and ran off and into the woods. And so we were just trying to be sensitive. I mean, these are very difficult stories, very hard memories for them to come back to go through that. So being sensitive about the caring of the individual, it's bringing up old wounds to do that. And try to do that at the same time to get the information so that we can come back and tell the donors, so that the donors will say, yes, I want to help those individuals over there. So we try to make it easy for people to do what they want to do, try to make it easy for donors to do what they want to do. So we bring back stories about people that they want to help.
Yeah. So Paul, where are those videos? Where do you keep them somewhere, or are they just audio recordings?
They're videos, and they're actually on the website of the IFCJ.org. I is international, F is in fellowship, C is in Christian, J is in Jew or Jews, IFCJ.org. And we'll also use them for 2830 infomercials that'll go on and relay the information about what's going on in these really hard-pressed areas. And I mean, we're over there, and I've got my, as I like to call it, my Michelin coat on, my heavy Land's End coat, and gloves and boots and everything, and I'm buckled up, with everything. And these little ladies are sitting there in these just shacks. I mean, some of them have open gaps in between the wood.
Yeah.
One of them was wrapped with like bamboo sheaves that was on the outside. I mean, you can see your breath inside. And they don't have central air. They don't have central heat. If they have a little pot-belly stove, they can usually burn 1 or 2 sticks of wood a day is all that they have to keep warm. And it's minus 15, sometimes minus 50.
Jeez.
When we were there, it was minus 7 to minus 15.
How do they even survive that? I mean, they survived horrible things, right? How are they surviving that at age 80s and 90s? And like you and I would go, and I would probably within a day need to just go in some kind of warm place.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I look at them, and I don't have an answer other than they're just hardy. I mean, they're bundled up with every possible rag, cloth, newspaper. I mean, they're wrapped up as much as they can.
Right.
One little lady would get up on top. It wasn't a potbelly stove. It was it looked like a little igloo. It was built into. It was originally built that way into her house. And these homes were built back in the 30s, 1930s.
Right.
1930, probably even some 1920. And she would get up there and just lay on that oven or that stove, and that's how she stayed warm. They just bundle up. I mean, they have to go outside to go to the bathroom, or if they don't, then they can't take it outside. Snow's up, it blocks the doors. The icy paths are out to their well if they have well. They don't have running water either. So they've got to bring enough water in to last them between snow to snow. And it's very slick. We fell down. I didn't fall down, but I almost fell down. But my companion, Phil, who was with me, he did slip. And, you fall out there and you break a hip.
I mean, if they get sick, what happens? I mean, they just die out there pretty much?
You just die.
Yeah.
Basically, they die.
How does that change your perspective coming back? Like everyone's thinking, well, my cell phone's not working fast enough, or my internet, and then you go and you see this going on in this remote area in the Ukraine. How does that affect you and the kind of lessons you bring back to your family?
Yeah, it certainly makes you more appreciative, and it makes you less I focus. The world revolves around me. Well, you see that, and well, maybe it doesn't as much as I thought it did, and it makes it more. It gives me more reason to do what I do. The thing that the people ask me what sort of drives me to do this, or where's my encouragement, where's my stimulus, and the thing I don't want to do is when I get to heaven is to find some little girl or some little boy or some Holocaust survivor who says, Paul, if you just worked a little bit harder and a little bit smarter,
Right.
I'd had one more day of food to eat. That's something I don't have happen. So
it's sort of like the ending of Schindler's List in a way. I don't know if you remember that movie, but that's pretty much kind of what happened to him at the end of the movie. And I don't know how much was real life and how much wasn't, but that's what he was thinking. If I just sold one more thing, I would have saved one more life.
Very, very much. And I really have that thought and really to reverse around the positive. When I get to heaven and I do see these people, I want them to say, thank you for working as hard as you did, for knowing as much as you know, learning as much as you've learned from other great people like Brian, Kurtz that you mentioned, and other people, so that they did have one more day of comfort, one more day less of misery. So that's my perspective.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. And we're going to go into how this applies to actually, generating them the money that they can live. But I want to ask, what does the IFCJ provide for the people or in general?
They are a funding organization so that a person in America who wants to help has a way to send aid over there. Obviously, you can't send a peanut butter sandwich or a block of cheese or a jar of medicine or something, a vial of medicine over there. So you need a vehicle. You need an avenue to do that. So the fellowship, International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the fellowship as we call it, they will receive the money from donors in the States or around the world, and then they send it over to like the JDC, the Jewish Distribution Committee, or some of the other Jewish organizations who have workers out in the field, and then they in turn will take the food, the medicine, check onto them. If they can get them to a doctor, then they'll put them in a van and take them in. So we're really the channelers and the funders, the processors of again, making it easy for donors to do what they want to do.
Yeah, yeah. So people just think, oh yeah, they're sending out a direct mail piece. They don't realize you're going into these villages and actually accumulating the stories and telling those stories. So what happens after when you come back and you have these rich stories? What do you do with them, and what does that look like as far as what you're sending out?
Yeah, then it goes into the direct response mode, and it's very much to take it out of the deep personal arena of these really heartbroken people and put it over into the marketing, advertising, merchandising, direct response part, which is what makes it work, so that they do have one more day of hope and one less day of misery on that.
Right.
And it follows the principles and the precepts of marketing. You still have a consumer that you're dealing with. You still have buyer remorse, you have donor remorse, just like you have buyer remorse. On that, you want to make sure that you're confirming what someone has done. Everybody wants to be acknowledged and appreciated. It's nothing different than buying a car or buying a loaf of bread, or the process is not any different from that.
Right.
Is how you communicate the message, how you tell it well, stories well told, and communicate that interest. We never rely on guilt. We never rely on pressure. It actually comes, if you want me to go a little further.
Yeah,
it
goes deep as humanly possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It really comes out of 1st and 2nd Corinthians 8 and 9. And it really based on 3 principles. Is that A, God loves a cheerful giver. There's 2 Corinthians 8:7, I believe it is, it says that. 2, give from what you have and not from what you don't have. So if you have it, you want to give it, then that's 2 of the 3. And then the 3rd thing is give out of a joy of giving. Some people say out of an obligation. I prefer to say it's a privilege and an honor to give. So if you enjoy giving, if you have something to give, and it's something you feel like fulfills what you're doing, then we make that possible.
Yeah.
We communicate the stories. We do it through direct mail again. We write the letters. We send it out. We do segmentation, figure out who needs to receive, what they need to receive. We do third class windows for the less engaged people, so that we have lower cost involved into it. Those who are more engaged.
Talk about that for a second. So what do you mean by that for someone who doesn't know, the third class windows?
Good.
Yeah.
We segment just like any other marketing firm would segment out their buyers. We segment out the donors. Basically 8 segments. 2,500 who have given cumulative 2,500 in a year. Those who've given 1,000 to 2,499.
And we're going to talk about how all this offline stuff does apply to online, because if people aren't segmenting, there's a lot of, the messaging is much different, and packaging in this case is much different. So anyways, so go on. There's a number of segments.
Yeah, so do the segments, and then that determines who gets which package. And we do 2 basic packages. One is a nonprofit organization stamp. We call it third class, but it's really a nonprofit stamp. And
third class sounds worse than
third
you're a third class. You're segmented into third class. No.
Yeah, the third class stamp. So it's a window. It's usually a left window. It's a 2-way match. The letter will be a dear friend letter. The reply device will have a personalization, Dear John Q. Sample, and usually we've got, sometimes it's a one-way. It's a one-way match. It just has one identification in there, and then sometimes we'll have an extra device in there as well.
Like what do you mean? Extra device.
We'll do like a certificate that will be personalized. So that's another personalization. The reply device is usually the driver that goes inside the window that drives the package, and that would be typically $99 and down a year. And we've done this through testing to figure out where the break even is, to be good stewards of the funds that we have, and that's where we get our best returns. And then 100 plus, we'll do a closed face window. A closed face 3-way match package.
What's a 3-way match?
So that the outside carrier is personalized John Q. Sample.
Oh.
The letter says John Q. Sample or Bill and Betty Smith, or whatever it is.
More personalization.
Personalization. And then the reply device will have that same Bill and Betty Smith on there as well. So you've got those 3 things that either a machine or handwork has to put together. And then we will do sometimes an affinity group or a club that we would have on that. And the letters will go depending on the rise, the more frequently they give and the higher amount they give, the softer the ask will be. The less frequency, the lower amount, the more direct the ask will be in there. Mm-hmm. Not a guilt, not a push, but there is an ask.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have a call to action, that's the ask.
Right. What's an example of an ask that, like a soft ask versus a hard ask or direct ask?
A soft ask would be, Jeremy, as one of our more faithful donors who've given frequently on the basis, if you feel like this is a good time, prayerfully consider to giving a gift that God provides. And here's another opportunity. You may want to help Leah this month. Something like that.
Yeah.
And then a sort of a moderate ask would be...
these people are dying, give something. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. we don't only use that in the lapse reactivation package. No, we don't. But a moderate ask would be your gift of $25 will provide one food box for an elderly Holocaust survivor who is snowed in the villages of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So what? How specific does it get with does it actually tell specific stories in the? Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, the story the two stories I mentioned to you, we've used both of those stories. We'll change the names, and then we'll change the photographs. Some of them actually are still in danger from people who would want to come and cause them harm.
Really?
Yeah, they really do. They really are, and they really are in that situation. So, if the person is Olga, which is a very common name in that area, then we might change it to Leah, which is a good. I laugh. I go to the website. I Google the Russian and Ukrainian women's names. I get all kinds of Google responses that I don't want to be going to. Because I'm not looking for a Russian bride. I'm looking for a Russian.
Your wife's like, Paul, why is your internet browser have all this Russian bride stuff?
No,
I swear I'm doing the research.
Yeah, these are feeders that came in when I was looking for another substitute name.
I've heard that a million times, Paul.
Yeah.
That excuse.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it works occasionally. So,
who would possibly want to go after these people?
There are still government people over there that...
like a 90-year-old woman living in a shack, they'd want to go after them.
Amazingly so. And probably not so much that individual, but what that individual downline was connected to or never been surfaced in that area. So, and the other bad thing, see what I can say, there's a lot of left hand, right hand in Ukraine. It's a very difficult land to work in. And the other thing we have to be careful about is generally when they see a van, we're in a white van, it's not anything spectacular, but a white van pulls into a village and 3 coded Americans, or at least Anglos, get out and go into a little shack. Right. Generally, that means something transferred from the van to the people to the Holocaust person. Right. And so that when we leave, sadly on occasion, someone will go and steal or rob that person.
Wow.
We had one lady who had chickens, and she had like 5 or 6 chickens that they were actually snowed into the little coop. And people will come and steal her chickens, and that's her mainstay for existence. And steal her firewood as well. She goes out and collects it, and I'm not talking split rails. I'm talking branches and sticks and things that she can physically carry back.
So when you're going out to these villages, or when the organization is, how do they have to sort of remain secret in a sense?
In a sense, they're largely forgotten, and they're very low profile. They try to stay low profile. They don't want to be known as Jews. Don't want to be known as vulnerable. I mean, an 88 to 93 or 5'2" woman is not going to be much resistance.
Right. I mean, how do you and the organization, when you go out to the village, how do you remain kind of secretive so people don't know you're transporting, or is it just inevitable?
It's somewhat inevitable.
Yeah.
We make as little impact on the street as we can, but a lot of these places just have no one come up and down the street. So if there's a white van, then we see people out their door, looking out their window. They come out on the doorstep, and want to know what a van is doing in the middle of the street. So, I mean, you do what you can do.
Yeah. So why do the non-Jewish organizations want to donate to these organizations or to Israel? Because I'm sure there's a lot of Christian problems out there.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Christians have a deep sense of care for the Jewish people. It's very biblical. Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. So there's one verse that Christians will connect into. We as Christian, I'm a Christian. My biblical roots go back to the Jewish people. My Lord, my Christ was a Jewish person. And so we've got those roots going back on that. Comfort ye, my people. Romans 8 and 11 talks about we are grafted into the shaft. We are part and therein. Some people interpret it again as we have an obligation. I think we're free will enough that we can or we can't. So I like to say we have a privilege of helping the Jewish people. Those are the main driving reasons for it.
Really interesting. And so I want to get back to the marketing aspect for a second.
Sure.
So talk about the outside of the envelope. I think when we were having dinner one time, you have some interesting things of what works, or maybe what you found doesn't work as well with just looking at the outside of an envelope. What have you found that has worked well for that?
Well, the two things that we've uncovered from, let's say I've been doing this 35 years, so I've had a lot of things that have not worked, and we've fortunately had more things that have worked in the process. And we have learned that a person who gives over $100 a month, cumulative, not a month, but a year, during the month, but for a year, $100 cumulative a year, they will respond best to a closed face package, no window, and ideally no teaser on it, no inscription, unless it's something particular like a special message from the head of the organization. But fundamentally, we want it to be, it's an old example, but it still goes it's still very, very true, is that we want it to look like it just came out of the typewriter, that someone sat down, the head of the organization sat at a typewriter or at a keyboard, and did, "Dear Jeremy, I wanted you to know this special message of this person I saw," and they put it in, lick, stick the stamp, and put it in. So you want to carry that look as much as you can. And that's one of the things that fights through the mail that comes in, that competes with junk mail or frequent mail in that area, which we find we get a very high open rate, up in the 90% range.
That's amazing.
And we've also found that the cost for doing that, it'll usually be $5, $10 total in the mail, that it won't support someone who's given $99 or less in a calendar year. So then we'll drop down to about a 50-cent package, which is what a window package would be. And then there we have a visual. We'll put visuals on with the teaser that there's some reason for that individual to stop as they're going through the mail and say, "Oh, I may want to take a look at this." And the thing that we're continuing to develop more of a skill is putting questions on there. Very hard for people to
on the outside
to a question on the outside on that, and so we use those as.
I don't want to reveal all your secrets, but if there are any questions you could share, like as an example.
We'll do usually the wills and the hows. That might be the better thing. The thing not to do is a closed question. Will you give a gift today? No. So,
trash.
Yeah, so you don't want to do anything that can be answered yes or no. More like how will, what will, in what ways, through the cold winter, who will, who can, things that there's no immediate answer to that. And that's just good direct response, where you're selling books or you're selling clothes or tires or flowers at Valentine's or whatever. If you ask a question that can be answered with yes or no, it's a bad direct response. You just don't want to do that. So,
right.
Because the answer generally is no. Yeah.
It's the first response, yeah.
Yes.
You help a lot of places, not just nonprofits.
Right.
You help a lot of different industries. Talk about some of that. What on the outside of the envelope, maybe what's the same or what's different as far as the nonprofit side of things?
Yeah, we work with some music companies. We work with high-end million plus real estate people. We do a lot of commercial real estate. We do residential real estate. And we have some parapolitical groups on that. A parapolitical might be something like, what will your grandchildren say to you when they find out you didn't vote? Something
No
like
pressure, no
that. Yeah.
guilt. Yeah.
And we've never used that, but that's just a quick one. But something like, what will your grandchildren say to you, maybe about how you voted? So one of the parapolitical groups that we work with on that, and again,
That's deep in psychology.
yeah, it's so we you want to get the person to get into the message. You've got 2 to 5 seconds for someone to really decide if they're going to get into the message. We don't want it to be, I'll get into it later. Later never happens.
Right.
So we need to make sure that there's a call to action of some type, that there is an incentive, not a trick, not nothing false or deceptive.
Right.
Always very clear on there as to who it's from and what it's about, but in a way to engage them so that their curiosity will take them inside the envelope.
So how did
Another would be
go ahead.
your we're just doing one right now. Your membership card is enclosed. See important information inside. So something like that, and that could be for a right to bear arms group, or it could be to a music group that we work with. It could be with some of the student teaching groups for teachers, how to teach your students better to pass the state exam that they go through. That's another one that we've used that approach.
So now they're inside the envelope, right? You get them to open it, because most people are opening the stuff over the trash can. So getting them to open it, I think, is a big feat, actually. And then they open it. What are some of the elements that you've learned throughout the years that you thought would work that didn't, and then what actually does work? Obviously, you talked about, like, you need a clear call to action, which maybe some people don't. What else is inside the envelope?
Yeah, the one that we have learned and we continue to see, sadly, frequently with other mailers, is the long intro. It just goes on and on about why they're talking about me, the writer, and what my organization does, and it doesn't get to what you're supposed to do. There are 3 basic things in any package. What's in it for me? What do you want me to do? And how do you want me to do it?
Right.
It's really those 3 things. So the quicker you can get those into your copy, the quicker the reader, will decide if they're going to stay and read the full letter or they're not going to. If there's nothing in it for me, it's all about you, I don't particularly want to read this. But if you can find something that's in there for me, whether it's, again, a music lesson or a high-end home, or we do an equestrian area, or even a tire, something like that. Will your tires, if you've got the data, our records indicate in the next 30 days your tires will go bald. Do you know what the percentage of chance is of a bald tire blowing out going down the highway? Question mark.
Right.
Yeah. And you go right into,
Right.
Fortunately we have blah, 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 and you go through there. So you want to make sure you've got the what's in it for them, or the call to action right up front. Yeah. If it's not in the first 3 or 4 paragraphs, they're not going to read the rest of the letter.
Paul, all that seems obvious, but I know I've made these mistakes a million times.
Yeah,
like,
they're easy to make.
The how to do it seems obvious, but I definitely have forgotten it when people are like, well, how do I, I've written things to people, and I didn't include the actual how to do it. So that, thank you for mentioning that, because I've definitely forgotten that before.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to do. You sit down and you want to write, you start thinking what's in your head and what's about you. So to reverse that around to what's in it for the other person. And the other really skill is setting up the copy so that the individual doesn't have to do anything. You want to make it so that everything is done for them. So instead of, will you send your gift today, or will you send in your money order or your credit card so we can send you a tire, it's, when we receive your information, we will send you your new tire. So that takes it out of the individual having to do the action, because I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I don't want to mess with it, I might make a mistake. All of those things that you go through. So you got to reduce the risk.
Reducing the friction for people to actually do it.
Reduce the friction, reduce the risk, make it easy. Again, make it easy for them to do what they already want to do.
Right.
So that's how we change it from you do this to when we receive your blank, we can do this for you.
Yeah.
And then tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Take the postage paid envelope, complete the information, use the completed reply device, use your postage paid envelope to mail this back through. And then when we receive it, we will do this in turn on that area. And so you've got what's in it for me, what do you want me to do, and how do you want me to do it?
Right.
Those three things.
Yeah.
And then you need to repeat that in each of the devices. The letter should have the same thing. Reply device should have the same thing. And if you have an insert, it should tell the same story. Because normally a person won't read all three. They'll usually read parts of one, or they'll only read one. Only read the reply device, only read the insert, or they'll only read the letter. Yeah,
so we have the outside, the inside, and you mentioned the remorse, buyer's remorse, or whatever the remorse is. Is there a follow-up that you recommend, or how do you actually equate for the remorse or eliminate the remorse?
Mm-hmm. We do that in the donor sphere where we're working with that. We have newsletters that go out, and they're really not a newsletter. It's a collection of 4 to 5 small indirect asks that go out, but they're very carefully worded, and the stories are selected that we demonstrate where the funds went, how the donor did make a difference in somebody's life, and we validate that it actually did happen. So that's how we confirm back. So when someone says, gosh, I sent $50 to this organization, I was a doofus, they just spent it and went to Florida or whatever they did with it, but you show them your $50 provided this food box, and there's a picture of somebody carrying a food box in to Olga, and it's like, oh yeah, well there's my $50, that's where it went. So I feel pretty good about that.
What about on the merchandising standpoint for the non-profit, for the profit businesses?
Yeah.
What do you do for the remorse?
And that's where space ads are still extremely valuable. And that's a big confusion. Space ads are really not to get the order. Space ad is only for, I think it's 15% of a readership of any publication really will give a focused attention to your ad. So you really got to forget the other 85% that are in there. And so you want to reinforce again.
So talk about space ad for a second for people who don't know.
Well, space ads, and actually it's online too. You can do that the same way. But the same principles work online as they work in mail. And frequently we forget that most of what works online worked in the mail years and years and years ago. We're just transferring those same marketing disciplines, marketing skills, the techniques, the research that we gain from offline. We can use it online.
Yeah.
So we can. I can remember where I was going before.
So usually space ads for the remorse, but for people who don't know, what is a space ad actually?
Yeah, that's an ad in a magazine. That would be Cadillac's latest car that they're coming out with, or an event that's coming through. So it's taking up space in a publication.
Got it.
Newspaper, magazine. Transit is another way. It's really a space ad that's just in a moving vehicle. Same difference, called transit, but it's a different outdoor. It's a space ad just up on a billboard. Same deal. And the principles still work the same way. You've got 2 to 5 seconds, a little bit more if it's in a publication, in a magazine, Time or a People or Wall Street Journal or something like that. A little more time, but not much more. Maybe another 2 or 3 seconds. So got to capture the intention. Some arresting figure, again, what's in it for me, and what's the benefit I'll get out of it, and what do I do?
And
Paul?
then for like the real estate niche, let's take, or whatever niche, how do they stop buyer's remorse after the fact that someone purchased?
It shows, let me think of, Cadillac was on, I saw a Cadillac ad, the Dare Greatly, Roosevelt's great quote. If you haven't read his, that leads up to the Dare Greatly, but you'll see somebody who's affluent, who looks happy. They're driving down the road. There's no traffic. They're happy and content. All of their favorite songs are on. That was a good idea. I bought this Cadillac and look what happened. No traffic. All of my songs are here. Happy spouse, happy mate, happy life, happy wife, happy life as it goes.
Right.
So you demonstrate the product in use is really what you do. and you just show that, yes, this was a good decision. Here's how it is. Here's a visual confirmation that this worked well.
Yeah. Paul, what are some big mistakes? So we're talking direct mail, obviously it's transferable offline to online, the parallels there. What are some big mistakes you are seeing of people in the online space not using all the principles of the offline direct mail?
Yeah, there are a couple of really consistent ones, quite offensive, if I may say.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is using a lot of reverse type. It's the kiss of death to do that.
What do you mean? What's reverse type?
Like a black background and white type. Very hard to read. Readability scores are very, very low on that. I have an expression that I use where I say a reader can't hear what you write until they see what you say. So if they can't see what they're looking at, they can't then hear what you said in the communication. So, and it's a lot of younger designers want to do that. A purple background with bright yellow and orange in there. And Yankovic and Starch did research a long time ago for McGraw-Hill, and they found out what fatigues the eye. And when the eye fatigues, the brain shuts off. The eye may still keep reading, but the brain is already shut off and it's thinking about supper or what's coming on TV or whatever they're doing. So if you make it hard for the brain to stay engaged, which comes from a non-fatigued eye, then they're going to go away and they won't even see. I think you can see it back over there. There's a sign on my wall that one of my marketing godfathers gave to me 43 years ago. And it says, "Don't tell me it's good looking. Tell me it moves merchandise." And that's a big key of a lot of online stuff now. That's beautiful, looks great, moves, it glows and does everything, but it doesn't move merchandise because it confuses the buyer. And that's the second thing is there's so much content on there, makes it hard to figure out what to do. The third thing is when you transfer from a landing page over to the buying page or some other next page, if it doesn't look the same, then the person goes, "Uh-oh, what happened to my link? Where did I go?" So you need to transfer that look from one site to the other, one page to the other. Big mistake on doing that.
Any other ones that you're seeing people make or any good applications?
The other one, just to reinforce, is it's not about you. It's about the buyer. It's about the reader. It's about the donor. It's about the constituents. About the member.
What's in it for them? So people are still doing the long intro. It's not in the mail, but it's online. It's more the long intro and not talking about their needs.
Yeah. We've been in business since 1934. We have the third largest organization in America. We sell more than anybody else does. We do this. We do that. We do this. And it's good. I don't care. Tell me what
How does it help me?
So that's the other big thing to do on that. A lot of people are getting really smart now with websites, good visuals. We kind of went through talking about space ads again. There was a day when, like Popular Mechanics, I don't even know if that still is around, but some of the ads are in there. There's just like, electronics. There's like a million things on the page, and that's good when you're looking for those things. But if you're flipping through the magazine, that's not good. So a lot of websites are like that. Just had way too much content on it. Very hard to get through to the point. So some of these big visuals that are coming through now, easy to navigate. Little sidebar about some interesting facts to get into. Again, it's basic marketing. You want to get them engaged into what they're already interested in. Make it easy for them to do what they already want to do.
Right. And Paul, so we were talking before about designing things better. So how can people, or how do you design things better?
Again, making sure it's not reversed, not a dark background with light type. Go the other way. I like to, and this will be very controversial with some of the designers who may by chance listen to this, is I still insist upon two spaces after every sentence.
Why is that?
Because it gives the eye an anchor point to rest. And so as you read along copy, it just kind of goes, it kind of takes an inhale. The eye just kind of inhales as it gets to that.
It knows where to go next.
Okay, great. Now I can go on to the next sentence and take another little rest and do that. Cross headers, same reason. if there's a big block of text in there, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have the time to read it, don't want to read it. I'll get back to it later. Later never, ever happens, particularly online. So if you've got crossheads in there, which basically tell a narrative of your story, then they can go through and go, yeah, okay, great. Then I'll read this paragraph. Short paragraphs. Ogilvy said the perfect sentence is 12 words long. Next to impossible to write a 12-word sentence. Next to impossible. But it's a great challenge. And if you keep that in mind, then you'll keep from writing something like Oliver Goldsmith did, which was he'd write a 4 or 5 page paragraph. Well done, and there's a lot of learning there, but it's hard to read. You certainly won't buy anything from that. Short paragraphs, they don't have to connect. Forget about, this, all the topic fits in one paragraph. Make it easy to jump from one to the other. Always have a jump at the bottom of the page or at the fold, so that it doesn't end on a period or at an end word. This is what you can do today, period. Game over. Don't go any further. This is what you can, under the fold, do today to help make your life better.
It keeps them reading.
Keep them reading on that. Again, make it easy for them to continue on instead of bailing out on you. So those are some things. Watching sans serif, particularly sans serif without the little feet on it, the little serifs at the bottom of a character. Your eye behind you has a little foot on there. So those help guide the eye. The eye actually goes up, goes to the foot, goes up, goes to the foot, goes up, go to the foot. And it helps the eye stay on line.
So that's the font you like?
Say again?
That's the font you prefer?
That's on certain things. Now, if you get sans serif in a small, non-boldface type online, then it runs together. There's not enough digital space for it to be distinctive. So it runs. So in that case, you want to make sure you go sans serif, whereas no feet on it, and be careful that it doesn't get too thin. Can't make it bold all the time, but make sure it's not thin. Again, it just closes in.
How do you even discover something like that? I mean, what I love about you, Paul, is you're so meticulous about this because you know every little bit can make a difference.
Yeah.
How do you even discover that?
Training, going to places, taking courses, a lot of reading. Mel Warwick was one of my early, never met him, but mentors. I read everything that he wrote. Going back through the classics, research, anytime you based on study, and a lot of times just, that didn't work, so let's do something different.
Who do you consider the classics? Who do you like?
Ogilvy, certainly. I think he's like my ideal. I loved his creative. I loved his make the meringue rise. Ogilvy was a French chef for a while, or French pastry chef. I think pastry is the right word. But he was then, when he worked, the guy who couldn't make the meringue rise always got fired. So, being attentive to making your meringue rise.
Right.
So that's when I go through and I check my indentions, I check my crossheads, I check the fonts that we're going through, I check the line length. Another key thing, a line length should never be longer than 26 characters of that font. If it's any longer than that, the eye fatigues, the eye stops reading. So that's another thing to go through. Forget who I learned that from. Good mentors, being around people, and had some very good direct response. Jim Killian and Tom McCabe. Jim Killian was great. I'd taken a lot of stuff to him, and he said, "It's not going to work." I said, "Oh yeah, Jim, it will work." We'd mail it and it wouldn't work, and I'd come back and say, "Oh, you're right, it didn't work."
What was something like that that he said that wouldn't work, and people were disbelieving?
It wasn't that they were disbelieving; they just didn't respond to it. And it was making sure that the photographs have action in them and they have people in them. And if the photograph, if for nonprofit, if the person doesn't express need, then why am I helping this person? So you've got to make sure that you communicate that. And then we run into that, gets to be an argument about, is that the specific individual that you're talking about, or is it an example? And then you put a disclaimer that says, because this
I see.
Privacy and what's the other word? We don't use danger. Can't think of the word that we use. But anyway, you put a disclaimer in there that says they're not all the same on that. So you've got to represent the need on that, is what you do. The people, yeah, you get a lot of, there was one big article not too long ago, I forget what it was. But you know, if you put ugly, ill-advised people in your ads, nobody wants to identify with those. That's why you have attractive models in there. You want to identify with male or female. Internally we have this ego that we identify with, and if it's someone who's less attractive, that product didn't help them, or that didn't fulfill my need. Mm-hmm. I don't look like that. I want to look like this over here. Mm-hmm. So again, not to be deceptive, but they want to do that. So I'm making it easy for them to do what they want to do again. So that's one of the things. And the other thing that I borrowed from that, but I came up with it on my own, is that the photographs have to be huggable. It has to be somebody that you would go up and hug yourself. And if it doesn't pass the huggable metric and guideline, then we don't use that photo.
How long is the copy usually when you send out those, like the nonprofit ones? Like how many pages is it?
Usually a front back, sometimes two one sides. What is it? Ogilvy says the letter should be no longer than it takes to tell the story. So one line of 12 words if that tells the story, and 21 pages if that's what it takes to tell the story. So we've had good success with 8-page letters. I've never had a 16-page, but I've seen some really effective 16-page letters go out.
What industry have you found that you've felt the need to tell, like the story's been longer? Like in the real estate industry or something, what equates to pages in some of those products that you were sending out?
Usually, that's a good one to start with. Real estate usually is more visual. It's more about the visual and the lifestyle. So not a lot of facts in that. Cars are the same way. Cards, you want to use a lot of really engaging words, not pedantic words, but the rich Corinthian leather, things like that make you want to be engaged with it. The ones that I think selling, merchandising, presenting, offering, all those words could fit in there, would be training or intellectual property. It takes a while to get into that, to do the testimonials. Here's what you'll get. Here are the 12 things. Here's the things you should avoid. Here's what will happen if you don't. I mean, they have so much content in them. They get to be believable just because of the content. I don't think anyone ever reads those things word for word, but it's like, okay, where's the buy? Where can I order? Where can I order?
Right.
And the smart people do that, particularly online. They'll put the little, the call to action or the go here or the click here, so that they can go through. Because if someone makes the decision early, don't force them to go through 45 minutes of some other talking head or cartoon or something that's going on. It's like, okay, I like it. Let me get to it. I got to go.
Yeah. And Paul, you were mentioning the sign from one of your mentors, right? Don't tell me it's good looking, tell me it moves merchandise.
Right.
So are there any other lessons that you learned from that individual?
From Tom, it was Tom Helzer, God rest his soul. Tom was the individual who first brought out Slurpees.
Slurpees?
He was the Slurpee merchandiser, 7-Eleven.
Really?
Back in 60s or 70s, somewhere back in there. And Tom was a sales promotion person. And his job, it was called Icy. Icy was the first.
I for sure, yeah.
Yeah, Icy was
They had the red ones with the, I know exactly, yeah.
And so he was the one that first, because I'd take things to him and say, Tom, this is great. What do you think? Like, he'd go, oh my gosh, this is awful. He'd red pen it and he'd say, read the sign, and doofus, read the sign. Don't just, tell me who's merchandise.
How did you meet him?
I met him, going back to connecting to one thing you asked me earlier about how I learned some of the things to do. I met him at a marketing group. I tried to go to any, and I still do. I'm in 4 or 5 different mastermind groups right now. Right. So I believe in lifetime learning. I believe in insatiable curiosity. And so I went to this group, and it probably was divine in some way. Tom was 5'1" maybe, and I'm 6'3.5", and so Tom came over and grabbed me and looked up at me and said, "Hey, tell me about this organization you're working with." And
He was 5'1".
yeah, if I won. And yeah, I still remember that scene. And it was like, okay, so we went over and sat down, and he took me under wing. And so I would take things through and ask him, and he would give me advice and counsel. And it's going back to a lot of things that the early people in our industry have found is being around other smart people.
Yeah.
It's more like being around you and Brian Kurtz. You put smart people in a room, good things are bound to happen.
I don't know if I could be in the same realm as you and Brian Kurtz yet, but give me like 20 years.
Certainly so. Everybody has something to share, and so just learning it.
Yeah. I mentioned at the top of the interview, Paul, about the company going from 4 million to 90 million in charitable support. So what are some, I know there's a lot of little things, but that's remarkable. What are some of the things that you equate to that amount of success? How did that company first find you?
They, through a friend, through a referral, knowing someone who knew someone, and I got a call one day that one of my friends whom I had helped to find a position somewhere else, which is funny, I worked for him and he worked for me at one point, so we both worked for each other, and I found a position for him. And one of his friends came to him and said, "Hey, I need some help with marketing. Do you know anybody?" And so he said, "Well, you need to talk to Paul." And so he connected me, and it just, one of the expressions I really love is giving opportunity a chance. And so I'm with groups, I'm in meetings, I'm going to places and giving opportunity a chance. And so David Walters, as it was, happened to introduce me. And so I made the call, and he said, "Yeah, let's talk." And I did one thing that I got to do, and that worked. And so I got to do one more thing, and that worked. And
just built.
Eventually kind of went from there and added on. And then it was, well, gee, how are we going to do this? And I said, well, I've got some experience in that area. And fortunately, I did. I'd come from good training, good background. And even when I was in retail, I spent 9 years in retail in clothing, and just learning how to work with customers, follow up. And a lot of what I learned in retail from John Spilliers, my department manager, I still use today. How to take care of people, how to make them feel good in a genuine, honest, caring way. Never deceptive, never tricky, and going through there. And that's the same thing we do in direct mail, same thing we do in online. In our lead gen, when you get a lead gen in, where do they go? What through what funnel, or through cycle? What's the follow-up when they lapse, when they buy? Make sure that there's a good follow-up on that. You made a good decision. Here's why you made a good decision. Here's something else you might want to be interested in. So all of that I learned when I was in retail. Sending out notes, thank you notes to people who come in, letting them know when something was available, caring about them. I'm a big believer in what is it that Zig Ziglar would say: if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want. So it's helping people to get what they want.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite quotes for sure.
It's great. I met Zig. I met Zig in person.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just at in passing or a conference? 'Cause he's from Texas, right?
From Texas, from Dallas, and he's from Yazoo, Mississippi, if I remember my story right, but lived in Dallas. And his son went to a summer camp where I was a marketing director. And again, we had good experience with the son. Zig wanted to be a part of what we were doing, and so I called him up, asked him if he'd help, and he was very, very generous with his time and effort, and did that. So
he's a legendary, yeah,
great guy.
9 years in retail.
Yep.
I want to hear some of the lessons, and one in particular, you have this sock rack principle.
Oh yes, yeah.
Talk about that for a second.
It's fun. Thank you for bringing that up. And again, I still use it today. You ask about the carrier, the teaser, and the visual on a carrier. Still the sock rack. Still the sock rack principle on that. And so when I was in retail, I bought men's clothing for Hartshafter Marks out of Chicago. They're still there. And we had maybe a 4 foot tall by 3 foot wide sock rack, and it was filled with 95% black socks, because that's what most people bought then, was 95% it was the black socks. Another 5% would be navy, and then the other would be a scattering. And so I learned if I had a sock rack of all blacks and navies, I wouldn't sell as many socks if I would buy a half dozen bright yellow or lime green or red or purple, and just have a little variety on that rack with all of these blacks and navy socks, and I would sell more socks. And I would take them off, and I'd try all dark, and it wouldn't sell as much. I'd put them back on, and sales would go up. And I'm talking, like 100 dozen black socks and half a dozen red, half a dozen yellow, half a dozen lime green. I guess grandmothers bought them for Christmas gifts. I don't even know who bought them. But I sold more black socks when I had bright yellow and bright green. So I do that all through.
So why is that?
My guess is it takes the drabness away from the all black rack or just a mundane situation. It draws attention, makes someone remember, oh yeah, yellow socks, who buys yellow socks? Oh yeah, I need black socks. Something that engages them, it entertains them in some way. They are colorful. Many a time I remember just thinking, it's such a pretty yellow, I can't wear it with my dark black or navy suit, but this is such a pretty yellow sock, just really pretty.
So part of it attracts people, and part of it, once it attracts them, it points them to the obvious choice.
It does. I think it's breaking inertia, which is another big principle of direct response, is you want to break inertia, which is why Publishers Clearinghouse had such success with the which color Corvette do you want when you win your prize? Pull off the color that you want, stick it on the carrier, and when you win your Corvette, it was a Jaguar, remember, when you win your Jaguar, then you'll get the color that you wanted. So, I'm going to peel off the red Jaguar and stick it on there. So then you break the inertia. Oh, what the heck, I'll do some magazines while I'm at it,
I don't know if there's any other lessons, Paul, but you had 3 options when you were in retail that you would give people.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
And I still do that today.
Yeah.
Still do this the same way. Even when I do my ask arrays right now, I'll do multiple choices so that they've got an option. And that was where I had learned early in my selling days that someone would want a coat and tie or a shirt or a sweater or a sports outfit or something. And I'd just go over and they would say, I need some help. So I'd pick out what I thought was the very best thing. Just put it out there, just gorgeous. And they'd look at it and go, yeah, I'm not sure. And then sometimes they'd leave, sometimes they'd buy it, or sometimes they'd goof around. So I learned if I put something really fashionable, pretty uncomfortable for most people to wear, but still nice.
High end.
Really take someone with some moxie to wear it. And then I'd get something really nice, middle of the road. And then I'd get something that was almost ugly. Very pedestrian, very, very mundane.
That's what I would probably have chosen. No, I'm just kidding.
And then you show the high fashion, you'd show this really nice, acceptable, and then you'd show the ugly, and generally they'd pick the one in the middle. And so I think it's the principle there is choice and knowing what to do. Part of it is I don't want to make a bad decision. So if I see something that's too wild for me to wear, then I won't wear that. See something that's too ugly for me to wear, I'm not going to wear that, then this must be good.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference. I use it still all the time in every direct mail. I use it online all the time online right now.
It's framing. Yeah, talk about how you use it. I know it's been used on me. I think, with the real estate stuff when they were showing us the house, I didn't realize at the time until after I learned more marketing principles, but they definitely went to this really, really nice place, and they went to this really horrible place, and then there was a middle of the road place. And I was like, well, that I can't afford. This is horrible. This is way better than the horrible one. So, but anyways, how do you use it?
Yeah, and I think that people don't know what they want until they know what they don't want. And that helps them to figure out what they don't want. It takes away some of the risk. It takes away the confusion. It makes it easier for them to make a decision. And even on, you've seen around many a time in online packages. You can get the $9.97 package, or you can get the $9,997 package, or you can get the $997 package. Right. So you got the framings in there. Right. And most of the guys never expect to sell the 10, whatever the range is, the the top end. It's having, what is it Kennedy said? It's having a gold package or a platinum package.
Platinum, gold.
It's it's $100,000 package, and 6 people in the world are going to do it, but 300 people are going to do the 1,000 package. So, one of the key retailers, and almost had his name, not Harvey Winston, in Toronto, but a lot of retailers will do that. You'll have the very, very expensive high end car, suit, or whatever, and seldom do you ever expect to sell those, but it sells a bunch. It's back to the black sock and yellow socks story. It's having that comparison and a frame, and framing and anchoring is a big part of merchandising. I'm glad you brought that up. If you can get that anchor in early, which is where a lot of the online people are doing, get the anchor in. Here's the $990 package. Normally $1,900. The super package is $9,000. You've got those anchors, and you've got the framing in there. So great key concepts.
Right. What have you found any percentage breakdown works better? Like the platinum package is like 3 times the middle, or the middle is X amount more than the lower. Is there any math that you've seen that's worked as far as that goes, or?
The one I'm seeing is the 97s. It ends in 97s. And there is a psychology there. Typically 99s are sale oriented. If you go into Walmart or Kmart or Neiman Marcus or wherever you're going into, again, making a framing there, usually the sale items are 99. So in the 95s are not, and you don't want to make it round, certainly not $19. $18.95 is what you want to do, or $18.99. So I've seen the 97 be a really good. A lot of people use the 97s. I don't have a percentage from 97 to 199, 197.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah, if you've seen anything like that. So Paul, you grew up in Texas, right?
Texas.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you were growing up, what did you want to be?
Oh, professional baseball player.
Baseball player.
Oh yeah.
And you
If I
played
had any
baseball?
Any talent at all, I would have been a professional baseball player.
Did you have talent?
No, I didn't have any talent.
Because you mentioned too early on that you have Cubs. You're not a Cubs fan though. You said you have Cubs tickets.
Yeah. Again, back there on the wall, I got to go to the Cubs playoff game, not this year, but year before last. Quick funny story. I got in. I was actually at a mastermind meeting with Dan Sullivan, and got on the train, went downtown. The Cubs game was going on. I got there about the 5th inning, bought a ticket, and it was they were playing the Cardinals. It was the first year they'd really been in the playoffs in a long time. They're playing the Cardinals, the Nemesis, the hated Cardinals, and so I had a red jacket on, and cranberry, it wasn't red, cranberry, and so I got the ticket. It was 1-1 when at 5th inning, and I went in and sat down, and all these guys around me were like Saturday Night Live, the Bears, and big old robust and vocal, and so I came in this red jacket. I sat down, and the Cubs hit a home run. Just like I sit down, home run. It goes up, and they're like, "Look what you did! You're our good luck." And that was the night that there were more home runs hit than any other game in Major League Baseball history.
Wow!
And so I was their good luck charm. So I got all this ribbing, and you've got to come back to the next game and everything. So that
we're friendly in Chicago.
Yeah, very, and it was great. Of course, I'm a Cubs fan, and certainly like the Rangers. Mickey Mantle would be my hero. Shortstop is what I wanted to play. I got hit in the nose too many times with bad balls to continue to be a good shortstopper, but that would be my fun
So
thing. How
did you get into then the world of direct response?
I think I've always had going to back unique ability. I think just the package that I came with. I've done some. This is really interesting. You and I haven't talked about this at all. As a matter of fact, I just uncovered it last week in another group that I was in.
Yeah.
Stegan group, great group. I think what we do today plant seeds for what will happen in the future. One of my goals in life is to make life better for my great-great-grandchildren. And right now I have a 17-and-a-half-year-old as my oldest grandchild. So I'm talking 2 generations that don't exist right now.
Right.
And the way that I think I can make life better for them is to make me a better person now so that I can do things that'll help make life better for them. And it's going to be a difficult life then. Having looked back in a conversation last week, which I'd never come across, my grandfather, I love to say I'm from Texas. I'm in a long-standing Texas cattle rancher family. Now that's true. However, it's river bottom ranchers.
What's that?
River bottom ranchers are the guys who bought the land in the river bottoms. And in the river bottoms, even now we have flood control is an issue, but back then there was no flood control whatsoever. So when the rivers would flood, it would come way up, 200-300 feet up into the mountainside. So nobody would buy that land. You couldn't build a house on it, you couldn't farm it, you couldn't put animals on it, or it's difficult to put animals on it. So my grandfather would buy these acres along the river bottom for like $1 an acre or something. And then he would put cows down there. He would run cattle. And they were wild as animals, and they were very difficult to do. But he made a living. He had eight children, and 2 that passed away, so 10 total.
Wow.
And the guy figured out how to make a living out of the river bottoms. And so there's that entrepreneurial spirit. I only met my grandfather maybe 3 times in my life. He died at 93, and I would have been 6 or 7 when I last saw him, and I think I only saw him 2 other times before that. So I had no conversation with him. We didn't sit down and he told me the facts of life and how to be an entrepreneur. But somewhere, someplace, he did that.
Yeah.
It's transferred.
It got passed down somehow.
Somehow to me, and hopefully somehow it'll go forward. So I think there's always been, and I've done genetics, and I think there's some other things in there. And I still remember I got out of the Army and somebody asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm not for sure, but I know it'll always be involving merchandising.
Really?
Some capacity. And I had a paper route when I was in junior high, and I used to be the one who formed to collect the bottles, and we'll go and get candy and stuff.
You're always enterprising.
Somehow it's part of it, it's part of the unique ability that's in there. So I pursued, the other reason I took marketing in college is so I didn't have to take a second year of language. That was the other reason I went into, I thought about pre-law, but you have to take two years of Spanish or some language, so you don't in marketing. But I went back and got my law degree later, but you didn't have to take a language to do that. So I've always just had an interest in it. And so I went from throwing papers, I worked in a grocery store, then I went to the clothing store, sold, was a department manager, was a buyer, was a merchandise manager. And then when I went to SMU, I did marketing, and then my MBA is in general business marketing. And then all of the courses, I'm taking a ton of courses, just a ton of courses, and they're all merchandise marketing oriented. So that's...
So Paul, what have you come up with lately? Because I know you always think about helping and leaving a legacy. What have you come up with lately of how will you make sure your great grandchildren are in a good place, or something that you leave behind? What are you thinking now about that?
Well, the main thing is to work on me, to get as much of me out of the way of me as I can.
What does that look like?
Being a fallen human. The easy way I've come up with to describe that, there's a song, Young is his last name. But anyway, it says, when I'm with you, I'm the person I want to be. It's a good song. What I've reversed is said, when I'm with me, I'm the person I want to be.
Right.
So I'm trying to be everything that I can be: integrity, honest, direct, caring, considerate, and it's a journey. It's a journey. It's as our scripture says. It's a continuum until we reach perfection. I'm not sure that definition of perfection is what we think of it meaning. I think it's just more of a journey than an ending point.
So you think by you just self-improving, that will then just happen? Like, you just continue to make yourself better, you're going to make everyone else around you better, your family, and that will basically allow you to be in the position for your family to, or you to leave a legacy to your family and great grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. I think the example, when my children and my
because children, you have some children in the business.
I have 2,
Yeah.
my son and my daughter.
Yeah. So talk about their roles a little bit.
Both in account service, and people usually say, "How is that?" And I say, "Well, it's great for me, but you have to ask them how it is for them." So, but it's fun. I enjoy having them here. So, and then I send them to many of the same courses. My son and daughter have been to Singularity University that I went through, a great program. They've both been a strategic coach. One of them's been through Stegan. So as many times as I can get, when I learn something, I say, this was really good for me, that I want to put them in that position so that they can, and they'll learn different things for them than I learned for me. Yeah. And hoping that's it. And I think in some ways, Brand, you and the other, what's that expression? If you want to know who you will be and where you will be in 5 years, just look at the people you're around and the books you're reading today. Is that not Shoeless Joe Jackson, but one of the Jacksons, Jackson 5, one of the Jacksons.
Shoeless Joe or Michael Jackson, one of the two.
Yeah, it was Jackson. I forget what his name is. Anyway, so I'm a real believer in that. I believe people that I'm around, and I'm absorbing from them, and I think they absorb from me.
100%.
It's not a goal of mine. I'm really just focusing on me, but I think that's what is the thing of the butterflies. Butterflies all get together, and then eventually islands over. The same thing will happen. I'm not quite sure that happens, but I think there's an intuitive that works that way, and I can just make the world a little bit better. Not a world saver. I no longer believe I can save the world. That was back when I was in my 20s. But I think I can make it better by treating myself better. Number one, there are two basic principles: have no other God before you, and love your neighbor as yourself. But you can't love your neighbor unless you love yourself. Right. So if I treat my neighbors the way I treat myself, sometimes I'm not very nice to them. So I'm trying to come through a better position on that, understanding myself better. What is it? Marianne Williamson says, it's not the fear that I'm inadequate; it's the fear that I'm really good. So I'm really trying to embrace my skills, not in an ego way, not in a pedantic way, not in a hedonistic way, but just to embrace them, just to be real with who they are. I think it's just as wrong to be overly inflated as it is to be underinflated. And to say, oh my gosh, I'm no good, I can't do this and this and that and the other. Is to say, well, I can do this. I do that. I don't do this, but I do this. I do this well. I did marketing well, and we did go from 4 million with one organization. We're actually up to 126 million this year.
That's amazing.
On that, so their first appeal before me, their highest appeal, not the first, their highest appeal before I came in was $17,000, and now we'll do around $6 million a month right now.
Wow,
17,000.
That's remarkable.
It is, and
congratulations.
I had a great person. Thank you. I had a great person leading the organization who made it possible for us to do what we did.
It's obviously a team effort. Yeah.
So without that person leading, I like to say it's like the head gander does for the other, breaks that vortex out there so that the other geese can fly along behind him. And that's what he did. He's very adventuresome, very willing to understands marketing and willing to take chances. And sometimes he took chances that didn't work, but most of the time he took chances and it did work.
Yeah. So Paul, I have two questions. Thank you so much, by the way, for the time. This is very valuable. I have two last questions, but before I ask them, I want to point people towards your website and where should they check you out online. I know BighamAgency.com. People can go to BIGHAM and then agency.com. Are there any other places we should point people towards online?
Just making sure that there's no N in there. The Bighams are my Irish cousins, the renegade cousins, and we don't associate with them. So it's just the Bighams. So no, just B-I-G, not B-I-N-G.
Right.
That's it. And then, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to entertain questions.
Are you trying to focus right now on certain industries, or do you what type of clients do you take on, or do you prefer nonprofits? If someone's looking to, for a marketing agency, direct response, and looking for what you do.
Yeah, we do both. When we initially started out, we were a commercial agency, and we did about 20% nonprofit. And then just the way development goes and things nurture, we became an 80% nonprofit and 20% commercial. And now we're closer, not 50%, but we're closer to that. So we have a lot of nonprofit organizations that we work with. So anyone who has direct response, I love space ads. So if you have a space ad, let me do your space ads. I love space ads. They're not as effective as other things, but they're fun to do. So anything with direct response on that, mastermind groups, we love to work with them too. So personal development.
Anyone wants to grow from 4 million to 90 million, you should hire. No, I'm just kidding.
and be a good leader so that we can do that.
Right. So 2 last questions. One, you've obviously, from talking to you, you have a huge focus on customer service, right?
Yes.
Customer service landed your wife.
Yes.
Talk about that for a second.
I'd forgotten that we talked about that.
We didn't, actually. Just from my
didn't?
research. No.
Oh, did you? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, good. That's fun. After my paper route, I graduated to working at the grocery store. And I think I made 81 cents an hour, I think is what it was. So when you're a package boy, you have a little bit of flexibility as to which line you go to package. You have a checker, you have a customer, and you have a person puts the stuff into the bags. They were called package boys at that point. And we were young. We were 16, 17, 18. And we would always know when an attractive daughter came into the store, and then we figure out who the mother was, and the attractive daughter. And so whenever this particular mother came in who had these 2 particular daughters that I thought were quite attractive, I learned to make sure that I got to package her packages or groceries, and it was engaging and conversational and developed a friendship with the mother. And then when I was promoted to checker from 81 to 89 cents an hour, I got to be a checker. Then the mother would come over into my line and wait for me to check. Even if there were like other lines or less, she would come over and wait in my line. And of course the daughters would come. And then I get a chance to engage with the daughters. And so that's how I made the first connection with my wife. And I don't think this is in anything, but my wife was in the 5th grade when I was in the 6th grade at the same elementary school. I didn't know her then. I was big man on campus because I was in the 6th grade. She was just in the 5th. And then when I moved to the 7th, we moved to a same area but a different school. There's a brand new school, a growing area. And then we met up again and going to church together. But it's through the grocery store. It's through befriending the mother and developing a relationship with the mother who brought the daughters that I had a chance to get to know the daughters.
You were enterprising in business and you were very strategic. I
Yes.
like that.
And it was a good deal. 49 years this year. 49 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my last question is along those lines, Paul, is because I knew I had thought it was 47 years, but now it's 49. Maybe, yeah. So give us some lessons in a successful, long marriage for people out there.
Yeah, the first thing is...
So maybe I should talk to your wife. No,
There's definitely no magic answer. I love the expression of prayer, patience, and Prozac. So
heavy on the Prozac.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
Prozac. It had a lot of prayer. Both sides. Both sides. It's definitely give and take, 100%. I think I have come up with another response to that. I think it's willing. There are 2. I think it's willing to want to be in the relationship, and again, that goes back to marketing. Is the consumer, the donor, the member, the constituent, the advocate, are they willing to be with you? Can you create a climate that they're willing to be with? And so I think that's it. One of the movie stars' parents said this, and I love this. I think that's very true. When she Paltrow, Gwyneth Paltrow,
okay.
her parents, and she asked how they stayed together, and I think the dad said, because neither one of us were stupid at the same time, and that's really a good thing, and I think that's another part of marriage is we both have not been stupid at the same time.
That's great. Paul, thank you. I really appreciate this. Everyone should check out BinghamAgency.com. Check it out, and it's been an absolute honor, Paul.
Thank you, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side.